Have you ever heard of a woman who challenged an entire empire with just her courage and a fierce love for her people? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Mekatilili Wa Menza, a name that echoes through the hills of Kenya as a symbol of resistance and power. This isn't just a history lesson. It's the tale of a true African heroine who stood tall when others were forced to kneel. So, who was Mekatilili Wa Menza, born in the 1840s among the Giriama people, a coastal community in Kenya? She was a widow, a mother, and a respected leader. But to the British colonial administration, she was a formidable threat. In the early 20th century, the British were tightening their grip on East Africa. They wanted land for their plantations, cheap labor to work it, and taxes to fund their administration. For the Giriama, this meant losing their homes, their culture, and their freedom. The British colonial officers saw the Giriama as just another resource to be exploited. They tried to recruit young men into the carrier corps for World War I, essentially forcing them into labor. They imposed hut taxes that families couldn't afford and seized fertile ancestral lands. The Giriama way of life, which had thrived for centuries, was on the brink of collapse. Many felt helpless, but Mekatilili was not one of them. She saw the devastation and decided to act. At a time when women's voices were often silenced, Mekatilili stepped into the political arena. She was a gifted orator, and she used her voice to awaken her people. She traveled from village to village, her message clear and powerful. She wasn't just speaking, she was performing, using the traditional Kifudu funeral dance to rally support. Imagine the scene: a powerful woman, older and full of wisdom, dancing and chanting, her energy infectious, inspiring everyone who saw her. Her most famous act of defiance took place in 1913. Arthur Champion, the British administrator, had called a large public meeting, or baraza, to assert British authority and recruit labourers. As he spoke, Mekatilili, accompanied by a man named Wanjawa Midori, boldly interrupted him. Legend has it that she performed a powerful dance, slapping the administrator's hat from his head. A profound act of disrespect and a direct challenge to colonial power. Some versions of the story say she even unleashed a hen and her chicks, symbolizing her protection over her people. This wasn't just a random act, it was a calculated declaration of war. She famously administered the Mukashakushi Oath, a sacred Giriama vow that united the people in their resistance against the British. She warned that the traditional way of life was being eroded by foreign influences and urged her community to reject British demands. "Our land does not belong to the British," she declared. "We will not give up our homes, our sons, or our culture." Her words were a fire, igniting the spirit of rebellion across Giriama land. The British, of course, were furious. They saw Mekatilili as a dangerous troublemaker. In October 1913, they arrested her and Wanjawa Midori. To ensure she couldn't stir up more trouble, they exiled them hundreds of miles away to Mumias in western Kenya. The colonial authorities thought that by removing the head of the rebellion, the body would crumble. They were wrong. This is where Mekatilili's story becomes truly legendary. She and Wanje didn't just accept their fate, they escaped. The journey back was perilous, a trek of over 600 miles through unfamiliar and hostile territory. They faced wild animals, disease, and the constant threat of recapture. Yet, against all odds, they made it back home. Their return was seen as nothing short of a miracle by the Giriama people, further cementing Mekatili's status as a spiritual and prophetic leader. Her return reignited the Giriama uprising. The British responded with overwhelming force. They burned villages, confiscated livestock, and brutally suppressed the rebellion. The conflict, which lasted until 1914, was bloody and devastating for the Giriama people. But even in defeat, they had shown their unbreakable spirit. Mekatili was arrested again and exiled, this time even further away. Even in her second exile, her influence remained. The British eventually realized that brute force alone wouldn't subdue the Giriama. They needed to negotiate. Mekatilili was eventually allowed to return home, but she was placed under strict watch. She lived out the rest of her days in her community, a living symbol of their struggle for freedom. She passed away in the 1920s, but her legacy was just beginning. For decades, her story was largely forgotten by official histories, which were written by the colonizers. But among the Giriama people, her memory was kept alive through songs, stories, and the annual Mekatilili Wa Menza festival held in her honor. Today, she is recognized as one of Kenya's foremost national heroes. There's a statue of her in Nairobi, a powerful reminder of her bravery. Mekatilili's story is so important because it challenges the narrative that African resistance to colonialism was weak or disorganized. She was a brilliant strategist, a charismatic leader, and a fearless warrior who used her culture and traditions as weapons of resistance. She shows us that leadership isn't about gender or age, but about courage and conviction. She fought for the land, for her people's autonomy, and for the preservation of their culture against an overwhelming colonial machine. So, the next time you think of freedom fighters, remember Mekatilili Wa Menza, a woman who, over a century ago, dared to stand up to the British Empire and became an immortal symbol of African resistance. Her spirit lives on, inspiring new generations to fight for justice and freedom. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the life of a true legend. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of incredible figures from history. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a video. See you in the next one.